So we have seen how to accomplish inheritance in Java. We want to talk now about method overriding. So we have seen method overloading before, which is defining the same method with different arguments and or return type within the same class. But method overriding is different. Method overriding is redefining the same method to perform other tasks within a subclass. And the right method is going to be used on the object's type. So if I have class A and class B, both defining a method called my method, and class B is extending A, then I'm overriding my method from A and B, and I can have different code to be executed in that method. Let's see a good example of that. Now, I can override any method that I want. So let me go to student. And in student, let me override. So I'll say overriding get info. So the signature of get info is public void get info. So I'll just copy this and go to student. And I will say this is the name. And then I will also say system.out.print just say sysout, and then I will say something like student ID is equal to something, which is student ID. And I will also say system.out.print the major is, so major plus major. Now let me run this back again. So let me go back to driver, and remember I'm calling get info here, and it's telling me this is the student info. Let me just print it now. See, now I'm getting student ID and major. But keep in mind that it did not change it for all classes. See, when I go back to employee, I'm calling or invoking the method from person. So it is going to change only for students. For the rest, it's going to stay as it is. Now again, do I have to have this line in this method? I can replace it with something better, because this is nothing but calling or just rewriting the same code in person. See, this is one line. In this case, it's only one line. If it's multiple lines or lots of lines and I need that functionality, I can just have a shortcut by saying super. Remember, super is going to allow me to call anything or to access anything from the super class. So super dot get info. And this is going to do the exact same thing, but it's going to prevent me from having to copy the code back into this method. Now let's just do another override. So let's go here and let me go and override work. So public void work. Remember, I'm overriding work from employee right here. So this is working hard. And now I will say, okay, if it's a manager, so what I will do is I want to print the first name, and this is an uppercase N plus, and then is sleeping, because this is what managers do. Okay, so let's go back and run this. Now see, the method that's called getInfo in person class was, we overrided that method in student, so we are calling the override version of the method for the student. So whenever I call getInfo for a student, it's going to call this whole thing. Whenever I call get info for employee or manager, it's not affected by whatever we did in student class, so it is going to call the method from person. Now for employee, I did an override in manager for get info, and I'm calling that method I meant for work. So for work, we overrided the method work, and we're calling the override version in here. But in employee, we're calling the original version. Now, do I have to override from the class that I'm directly extending from? Let's see. So get info is in person, not in employee originally. Can I override it in manager? The answer is public void get info, and then the info says system.out.println, or just super dot get info, and then what I will do is system.out.println the manager. And now class manager has its own get info, and class employee is not affected. Although I did an override in manager for a method that manager is getting from employee, which is getting from person, employee is not going to be affected. Person is not going to be affected. Only manager is going to be affected. Because as we said, if you do an override for a method for a specific class, only objects from that class are going to be affected. All other objects from all other classes are not going to be affected by that specific override.